Welcome to Reset to Healthier Relationships, Sunday night at 9. I am your host, Coach Glenda, here with my course manager and co-host, Rufus Carpenter. It's Sunday night at 9, and you already know this is your space, your sanctuary. Welcome to another powerful session of Sunday nights at 9, where we keep it honest, healing, and rooted in love. Now, tonight we're diving into something many of us never got the full truth about. Sex education as grown folks. But let's not stop at biology. We're talking about pleasure, emotional safety, knowing your body now in your 30s, 40s, and 50s, 60s, and 70s, and rewriting the scripts we inherited. So, ladies and gentlemen, tonight's topic is, without further ado, do the birds and bees still matter? The role of sex education and intimacy in adult relationships. I'm gonna allow Mr. Carpenter to give you a little bit about, tell you a little bit about his background before we dive a little deeper into tonight's topic.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Rufus Carpenter. I'm the co-host here at Reset Healthy Relationship, Sunday night at 9 p.m. My background is pretty simple. I came from a large family, a family of 14 kids in a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house. Never had enough anything. So if you're in that situation, you understand the human connection because I remember one weekend I went out working to help the family, and I worked all weekend long. I did chores for everybody. I went to grocery stores for people in the neighborhood. I raked leaves and cut grass and chopped wood. And I was about nine, almost 10 years old at the time. And I made like $35 and some change. And I can remember coming home, giving that to my mom. And she was so pleased and so happy that I made that kind of money that she kissed me on my forehead and she said, Rufus, baby, I love you. This is for you. And she gave me like $1.35 back. And that moment changed my life. From that point on, I've been a helper, always wanted to contribute and be a part of the mission. I wanted to make things go smoother. That didn't stop there. Also, I was in the military, and my job in the military, one of my jobs in the military, was human and race relation leader. Where I had the responsibility to go into any of our units, Army units, and I would check for any race or relationship issue. And when we had issues, I would be the first person on the scene, and I would do what's called an intake form, and I would decide what level of responsibility or resources we had to throw at solving that problem. So my background in relationship training and coaching is very diverse, and I'm here tonight to represent the male side because this container is really designed for you and like 20 of your girlfriends in your living room on a Sunday night at 9. The kids are in the bed, you relax. You all 20 of you ladies know each other, and you're talking about relationships. You relax. You might have some tea, a couple glasses of wine, and you're really talking about your breakthroughs as well as your challenges in relationships. And here, every Sunday night we come on, we have a set topic about a relationship, but you can talk about any relationship issues you have because you don't know the sister beside you. She looked like she got it all together, but she may be ragged as a bowl of yolk. And she might be just dressing up her problems and her situation a little better than you do with yours. But when you release yourself and tell some of the challenges that you overcome and share your breakthroughs, she might say, wow, if this sister can get through it and be okay, I can too. So you don't know who you're going to help. So tonight we have an interesting topic. I went through the material. This is a bond burner, something that we should have been talking about before. Glenda?
All right. All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Carpenter. So tonight we're asking, do the birds and bees still matter? And the answer is they do. Just like your voice, your body, your evolving needs, they still matter. Mr. Carpenter.
Okay, when I first saw this material and I said this, the birds and the bees, I remember my conversation with birds of the bees was, don't bring no babies home kind of deal. And you might need to cover it up and that kind of stuff. At 18, it's well, 16, 15, 16, 17, 18, that might have been okay. But like Glenda said, it's more than biology. It's more than just safety and risk prevention. Sex education should be a lifetime event, something that we do because when you're young, yeah, you're curious, you want to know, and a lot of times your parents and the people that in charge of you, your caregivers or your parental people or people in school, they're talking about incident, they're talking about protection, risk, and stuff like that. But when you get our age, it ain't about risk no more. I think we didn't figure the risk out. I think now it's more about what do you do when your body get old and your sex drive kind of change a little bit and it shifts, and when you've had some medical issues, and when you really look at that, you're not the 18, 20, 25, 26, 27-year-old person that you were with that great physical body and everything's working the way it is. You had a few hits, a few this and a few that, and some of the medicines and lotions and potions you take. Jesus. So we're going to talk about all of that tonight. We're going to talk about how you got there. We're going to talk about what you do now. We're going to talk about some things that you may consider or may not haven't considered. So tonight's a topic we all can talk about because we all have our unique learning styles. We were told different things as young people, and a lot of stuff we learned trial and error. And some of us may have a better technique or a better way of doing it, or we may have learned something along the way that we can share tonight. So tonight's a great night. We're asking everybody to get in to feel comfortable with this subject. Yes, we're talking about sex education, which should be a lifetime learning. We're talking about, but this is as natural as everything else in the world we talk about. One thing I let you know is, where do you get this kind of conversation from? Do you talk about it in church? Do you talk about it in your home? Do you talk about it on your job? Do you talk to your pastor? Hey, pastor, help me with this one. how, how do we do it? Because a lot of us, because of our culture, we're not going to a psychiatrist or a therapist or someone say, hey, help me sort through this kind of stuff. We're going to try to figure it out. A lot of us figured out in bottles, drugs, or whatever. But tonight, we're going to talk open and honest about it. Okay, Glenda, turn it back over to you.
Okay. How did sex ed look in your house growing up? Was it a book, a warning, or silence? If someone or anyone, I'm going to start us off by putting it in the chat. In my household, how we talked about sex education in my household, it was not spoken of at all. It was silent. It was like, don't say anything about it, wait till you get married, you'll figure it out. At that time, I remember my grandmother telling me, don't mess with boys because they're going to make you sick. So all do, like from 12 on, I'll say maybe 16, 17 years old, I always thought that boys, if I talked to a boy, if I kissed a boy, anything, any type of connection with a boy, I will always get sick. And her version of sick was getting pregnant. I'm like, wow, that's deep. And then when I had sex education in junior high school, that's when I learned it takes a little bit more than kissing and touching to get sick. So I had to find out that way. So if you would put in the chat, how did sex education look like in your house growing up? I would really appreciate it. I want us all to stay engaged, just to give us some ideas of what everyone's background, their household background looked like when it came to the topic of sex. Did your parents give you a book to read? Did they, give you warning signs? Was there gossip between you and the girls, or you saw something written on the bathroom walls? Or was it just silence? Nobody talked about it. it was more or less trial and error for most people. Mr. Carpenter, what about you?
Oh,
How was sex education in your household?
well, first I got to back up when you said your grandmother told you that if you deal with the boys, you get sick. I was scared to say a lot of young ladies been sick a lot, but
Yeah, I know, right?
but when you said it was pregnancy, then I said okay, then that was great because I wanted you had to take casserole or Pepto Bismol or something.
Right, right.
You just had that just did my heart good to hear that. I was full of laughs when you said that. But my household, I was kind of fortunate. I had like six brothers in front of me, the older brothers. So I learned a lot of my sex education from my older brothers and my uncles. And they were
Okay.
telling me all kind of stuff. But the stuff they were telling me, some was above my head, some I didn't understand, and some I did. Between them and Playboys at the drugstore, the Playboy magazine at the drugstore, I think it kind of figured it out a little bit. So my learning or my training for sex education as a youth was my older brothers, my uncles, and Playboys at the drugstore. Because back then the drugstores had this big array of magazines that would be out on the counter and or in the counter
Mhm.
display. And when you looked around and wasn't nobody looking, you paid somebody to get you one, or you got one on the side kind of deal. And that's how that was my sex education. Okay,
Okay.
audience,
Okay.
you got them putting in the chat. Or you got them talking about it, Glenda. What was the what
Well,
was
I did ask them to put it in the chat. If anybody want to, chime in and tell what they're thinking, that's always welcome.
was anything in the chat at all?
Well, Annette said she agreed, and she agreed to what I said as far as silence. And oh, someone just added, give me a second, was told have a baby, that's your responsibility.
Yes.
The fun life is over.
Yeah, and this is something, and please, audience, talk. Feel free to talk because this is a night we want to share, and we're gonna keep it light, and we're gonna keep it honest, light, and serious too. But share because this it all depends on the part of the country you're born in. It all depends on your cult, your parents' religious style, and whether you're raised in a single parent home or mother and father. All of this come into play. So we're gonna have some different stories tonight to share. But mine, like I said, mine was I had older brothers, uncles, and playboys kind of got me over into what sex education was. And I think Glenda said her grandmom said, "Be a boys, you can get sick." So I guess she caught a lot of colds. So tonight we're gonna have fun with that because normally when you first get it, you talk about biology, the physical
Right.
shape of your body, the different reproductive organs and stuff like that. But that's only a part of sex education. The sex
Mhm.
education is a lot of learning. It's a lifetime event. How do you tell someone that you're interested in intimacy in a sexual way? And then when you do tell them, is it a pleasure thing or is it something you're afraid of? You know, um, we're not saying. I want to say this the right way. A lot of people believe that you shouldn't have sex until you're married. I guess society has proved that everybody don't subscribe to that. So because of that, we're gonna let we're gonna let you police up your own understanding, whether it's before marriage or however. But we're gonna say because we're all human, and there's so many examples out there where people have had sex without being married, so we want to cover that too. Okay,
All
audience.
right, Mr. Carter, I got someone put in the chat. I grew up with four sisters, and my parents had us on birth control as soon as our cycle started.
Oh, let's talk about that because that's interesting. Because
Mhm.
because I've heard girls, ladies, and women say when their parents put them on birth control pill, that was almost like a red flag to go get it. So now you cover it. now it's free. I mean, not it's free, but it mean now it's you've covered. So no problem now. That's almost like a permission. Am I the only one that heard that before?
No, I've heard that. I mean, they didn't believe that in my household, but I've heard that before.
Okay. Yeah, because that's what I heard before, because that meant like, hey, we got the protection in place.
But you got to also take in consideration, even though um, the girls are on birth control pills, that may or may not prevent pregnancy, but it definitely does not prevent sexually transmitted diseases. So you are partially
Correct,
you
correct,
protected.
correct. And that's a whole different side, the contraceptives as well as the protection from diseases. And that's something that, and especially if your parents didn't talk to you about that, when did you find out? When you
Correct.
found out after you had a disease and went to the doctor and they said, oh man, how do you find that out? When is it too late? Because, I'm telling you some of the myths I heard. I knew this lady that told me that her parents told her, "Don't mess with them dirty boys, because them dirty nasty boys will get you not so much sick, but get you in trouble in the term that you're gonna have stuff you don't know it's about." So this is the way we were taught about it, because it was so taboo that we weren't told the actual facts. We were just giving I think I don't know what was scare tactics or trauma that we got. I don't know which it was, but that's how we were taught. We didn't learn the way we should have learned.
Right, correct.
Also it depends on your age category, because at my age, over 60, my parents were not talking to us children like they talk today, or maybe later. I grew up in the era where grown folk business was grown folk business, and children had a place. And when grown folk is talking, you had to go outside sometimes, because you made sure you didn't get to hear things. So they didn't talk sexual stuff to us. And I'm like, I mean, I'm Rufus' sister, and he tell you he's from a family of 14 kids. I ain't never heard my mom and daddy have sex. But how did all of us come out? You know what I'm saying? It's a whole lot of
Yes.
kids. So what I'm trying to say is they kept stuff so that children didn't get to know things. So as far as the sexual revelation, you won't get it at home. Now, what you might have got out in the street could be
Right,
different. But in your home, in our home, you weren't getting that.
right.
That was it.
And that brought up something interesting. I want people in the chat. I'm gonna put in the chat too. Put in the chat the age you were the first time you attempt to have sex or intercourse. Because some of us, we didn't know what the heck we were doing. We were doing what we saw other people do, and for us that was sex. So put in the chat the first time you think you had sex. I want everybody to do that. Just put in the chat your age. I'm gonna put mine in there. And Glenn, all I want you to just give us, once everybody said, just give some of the, just don't, just give us the ages. What are some of the ages that people first had sex? And see what ages. Now, I also make sure you put, because I know some of us, we tried, we fumbled, and we tried. Any time when you thought you were doing something. So not, I know a lot of us when we got a little older, we really connected and we got it right. We knew what it was. But when did you try? When did you start fumbling with it? I hope Glenn, did I make it clear? Was that kind of
I
clear?
understood what you were saying. I understood. If you don't understand, you can, put in the chat. You don't understand the question that he's asking. But we have quite a few responses in there. We have 12 years old, we have 16, 17, and 19, 18 years old.
Okay. All right. Okay. And I wanted that note to find out, so the length of time or the breadth of time in which we all started, because majority of people on this line right here, we're in our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. So that's a long time. That's a long span of have intimacy or intercourse in our lives. So what are some of the things that we can talk about tonight? What are some of the things that we can share tonight? The first learning part is where we're at right now. I think Glenda got us at the first learning part. When you're first learning about sexual relationship or being told the birds and the bees. That's where we're at in this section right now. We're in the first learnings. And the first learnings, like I said, from older brothers, uncles, and Playboy magazines. And I think Annette, I forgot what Annette said. Annette said something just now. She said she learned it from. Annette, repeat what you said about where you learned it from, because my mind was on something else and I kind of lost that. And I apologize. Write it down.
I didn't say where I learned it from. I said we didn't get an opportunity. We had to learn from the streets or someone else, but not at home. Yeah.
Right. And it said you have to learn from the streets and friends.
Word of mouth.
Mine was from brothers and uncles and publications that they had at the drugstore. And it said from the streets. I think Glenda said from grandma talking about you can get sick from messing with boys. Any other ways you learned? Okay, somebody got friends in school. I see that in there. Oh, hey, Gigi. I see she said hello. So we got it from there. So any other places you got your first sex education from? Because that's the part we're on right now. We're going to stay here for about 5 minutes on how do you learn, when did you learn, how did you learn? And then we're going to go from there. We're going to go to when you got married or in your mid 20s, 30s, 40s. And then we're going to end in our 50s, 60s, and 70s. So that's going to be the route tonight. We're going to start. Go ahead, Glenn. I see you want to say something.
I was just going to say, someone put in the chat that they learned it from books.
Okay,
now,
that's
they didn't
great.
say Playboy magazines, they just said books. So I'm thinking it was an educational book.
Yeah, I don't think they were talking about my book. Because I had 2 books when I was a kid, Spiegel catalog and the Playboy. Those were my books of choice. hey, what it is. But
I know.
but now, so we have that. Any other ways you've learned? We've got relatives, we've got the streets, we've got books, we've got education, school, and friends.
Okay, someone put in the chat the partner telling you what they like.
Okay, partners telling what you like. But so when you were young, we're still in that first stage. I guess we're in that first stage. So from your partners. So I guess that's called experience, I think. So we can call that one experience. Okay. All right. So any additional ways about how you first learned about the birds and the bees, and where you're talking about where your initial education and where you're raised? Because a lot of us who had warnings and whispers. That's how we found out. So we've got how majority of us found out. We got the ages from 12 to 18, I think, were the ages when we first had our first attempt or our first success with having sex or intercourse or intimacy. Okay, now let's go into the dating and from 20 to 30 years old. That span, let's get in that span right now. What does that sex education looks like? I tell you what, while we're thinking about that, Glenda, let's do some of our examples, some of our illustrated examples, and then we'll come back to that middle part, and then we're in on the last part. So let's talk about some of our examples first, because our examples are pretty nice. They're real world, actual things is happening, And then we'll go into that middle ground, that middle area of life, that middle age. And the middle age for this is we're gonna be below 30. Okay, we're gonna say older, 40 up. We're gonna say the older. All right. All right, Glenn, let's do maybe two. We'll do two of our examples now, and then we'll do two more after we done that middle section. Okay? What's our first example to give us, Glenda?
All right, we have Tina. She's a single 32-year-old raised with abstinence-only messaging. Tina felt guilty about solo pleasure, listening to a sex-positive podcast for women helped her name her desires on dates and set clear consent boundaries.
Okay. Let's talk about Tina a little bit, because Tina, because of the messaging, because of the whispers and the warnings she got, it almost sounded like she was traumatized just for the messages. And she didn't, and when you say solo pleasure, what is solo? I tell you what, in the chat, what does solo pleasure means to you? What would be your definition of solo pleasure? What would be your definition of solo pleasure? Put it in chat, because that's going to help us understand this as an example a little bit more.
I hope I spelled the word right.
Solo, S-O-L-O.
No, I'm not talking about that word.
What are you talking about then? Okay, let's put in chat. What's your definition of solo pleasure before we tackle into this example? Because that's the crust of this.
Okay, someone put in the chat shoebox.
Okay, that's that. I know what shoebox mean. Shoebox mean that you have your toys, you have your lotions and your potions, and you put them in a shoebox way up in the back of the closet, so nobody else know what's in there.
Oh, I didn't know. I've never heard of it.
Yeah, the shoebox. You don't want it when you hear that. That's a shoe. That's going in the shoebox. That's going in the shoebox. So hey,
I thought that was called the bottom drawer.
No, bottom drawer. People go in your drawers too much. Especially you got more than one or two in your house. Yeah, shoebox is that. Somebody but pleasuring yourself. That's it. Masturbation. That's it. Doing me. That's it. So we got that part straight. So I think we got that. We got that part straight. So, and the self-intimacy pleasure. That's awesome. We got that part. So this young lady was so traumatized with Tina was so traumatized with what she had got from her parents and from those others that she was afraid to even touch her own self. Think about it. So she had to get sex education, and she had to get her girlfriends to teach her to help her get beyond that. So that's how some of us are traumatized. Think about it. If she's that, I want to say this the right way. If she's that guarded that she won't allow herself to have pleasure, when she gets in a relationship, how can that be successful? Mm-hmm. Think about it. If you're so traumatized that you won't even pleasure your own self, or you want to allow yourself to be pleasured, and then you get in a relationship, man, that's a hard way to find connection. Mm-hmm. Because just put yourself in that position. You're a guy. You're meeting this girl, and she's been so traumatized in her youth about being intimate. You don't have a chance, buddy. Unless you're that one guy. What's that song? One in a million you. We're having fun with this. We're just having fun with this. But any comments on Tina? Any comments on that scenario? Anybody have anything they want to share about that middle area where you in you're 25 and to 30, where some of the issues or some of the opportunities or some of the things you've seen or experienced, or some of the things that you have questions about, or some of the things you want to share in that middle ground area? Yeah.
Now, there's a comment in the chat that says some people are taught that if they do it is sin.
That's a good one. That's a good one. That's a good one. Is that part of the Black culture, or is that part of just a religious culture? What do you think?
I think well, because she used the word sin, for me, I think it's more of a religious culture. For me, that's my interpretation.
Now, a lot of us feel that the church is the center of our community, the pillar of our culture. So it may be hand in hand.
Yeah, that's true, but they wouldn't trust me. I know for probably about 2, 3 months, that's all the bishop would talk about from the pulpit, was fornicating and having premarital sex. I was like, whoever need to get this message, I wish they hurry up because I'm tired of hearing about it.
But think about that. That's a double-edged sword, because one, if you do it, you're sinning. So, and I'm just talking about if you preach it that way as sin.
Right.
And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. But if you preach it as sin, and a person's already okay, now it's a sin, so I can't do it. So I won't do it because I don't want to sin. I don't want to displease God. And then let me get this out. Okay. And then when you do sin, and when you do it and it's sin, now you got the guilt of sin on you. So now you got the guilt of sin. You can't get in because now you did something, you got sin. So when that message is preached, and it's probably a good message to be preached, but you kind of put people in a bad predicament. So that one, I think that one you got to have. I think with that one, you have to have some type of understanding what you're doing when you teach that message. You have to give person more than just the hammer. Am I the only one thinking that way? Help me out, audience. Help me out with that sin when it's sin. Help me out with that one, audience. Anybody else got any comments about that?
Well, I do want to comment on what you said. When they reference the sin part, the Bible says, they said, "Thou shalt not." What is it? It says about no fornication.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. But that pertains to unmarried people. So, I mean, if you come from a religious background, they're going to promote that inside the house as well as at church. But at the same time, too, if you're not walking in that path by dotting every I and crossing every T, and in accordance with what the Bible is saying, you still have an opportunity to ask for forgiveness, in my personal opinion, if you do slip and fall. So it's not like you carrying this weight of sin over your head for the rest of your life. It's just that, some of us, we do fall short because of our flesh.
Okay.
But that's just my take.
I see something in the chat. It says, it's unfortunate that she won't know or won't get to feel or experience. Well, wait a minute. I'm going to read this right. Read this one for me, Glenda.
Okay. It's unfortunate that she won't know what to feel or expect when she gets with a man.
Okay.
And I think that goes back to that example that we just went over.
Yes, and that's important. Audience, anybody want to have anything to say about that sin part? How anybody want to talk about that other than me before we move on? Okay, I think that we don't want to talk about that one. Okay, you want to do one more, Glenda, and then we can go into the latter stage of sex education where a majority of us fall to at tonight. Okay.
Okay.
One more.
The next example I want to do is Monica and Aisha, co-parenting partners in their late 30s. Discreet porn use created secrecy. A therapist guided them to share preferences, allow practice yes, curious, no lists, and schedule talk then touch nights.
Do read that one again because this has some new stuff in here. This has some up to date stuff in here. So read that one again because I want to make sure everybody understand the concept before we talk about the tools. Go ahead.
Okay. We have Monica and Aisha, co-parenting partners in their late 30s. Discreet porn use created secrecy. A therapist guided them to share preferences, allow practice, yes, curious, no lists, and schedule talk, then touch night.
Okay, the first part of this is, we don't tell you who to love. You love who you love, and as coaches, or relationship coaches, we feel the two people that want to be together should be together. We just put it just like that. So we don't judge anybody. Okay. So this is two ladies or two women that's co-parenting. And apparently they have some issues. One of them or both of them secretly look at porn. And because they're doing it, one of them have an issue with that. Okay. And then after that, apparently they realized that they have to go to some type of counseling. So they got a therapist to help sort some of this out. And then they sorted out, and then they came up with some tools. And the tools, these are language tools they use. And the first language tools is yes, curious, and no. And what that looks like is that the two people would sit down, the couple would sit down, and they would say, hey, let's talk about some of the things you like or some of the things you do. And I get the option of saying, yes, I want to do it, or I want to try it, or the other one is, I'm curious about it. I really don't know. I'm curious. Tell me more. And then the last answer is nope, no parts of that. So that's a language tool that they say the two people get together and one say, hey, for instance, I'll use something we may know a little bit about. Let's talk about oral sex. Let's say me and Glenda sitting down and we talking about oral sex. Me and Glenda's a couple, we talking about oral sex. I say, hey, babe, I need some help. And I say, Glenda, what do you think about that? And she might say, Rufus, yes, let's get busy. Or she might say, I don't know, tell me more. Then I would kind of say, describe it. Hey, here's what I'm asking of you. And then she might say, no, hell no, I ain't doing that. So that's what that is. And that's a great tool. And that's a language tool. And the tool is called yes, curious, and no. Okay. Then the second tool is talk and touch. Once again, Glenda and I, we're across from each other and we had some issues. And now we're going to talk about it. She might think I'm a little freaky. She said, Rufus, let's talk about this. And once again, the oral sex, let me use oral sex so everybody know about that. Okay, say, Glenda, hey, look, let's talk about it. Hey, Glenda, I would love to have some oral sex. I would pleasure you first, you pleasure me second. What do you think? She said, well, okay. And then you touch. You'd actually go through the motion and touch, and you like it. And that's pretty much touch. That's talk and touch. You talk about it first, and then the person feel comfortable with it. Then you guys go ahead and touch and do it and do whatever that conversation is. And that's the language there. And those are language tools. And the reason why I brought this up, this is something that I think would be a great practice for everybody, anybody, especially new relationships. Because this way you can bring the things out and you get a chance to pre-flight it. Yes, I'm curious. Nope, we're not doing that. Okay. Any comments about that? Any comments about that scenario? Any questions, comments about that? Everybody's okay with that?
Yeah.
All right, now let's get into the old in our age. Let's get into over 40s 50s, 60s, and 70s. Let's get into that part. Now, adult education should be a lifetime event. It's lifetime learning. Because now in our age, there's so much that goes on. We have so many medical issues today. The medicines we take affect us sexually. The medicines we take make our hair fall out. The medicines we take our strength. The medicine we take make the body dry. We don't create or as much moisture in our body as we used to do. The medicines you take disconnect you and some of your organs. You get organs that don't function the way they should be functioning.
Right.
You get this age, you don't even have the desires you had as a kid. That 19, 18-year-old specimen is not that 60, 70-year-old specimen. So that's where we're at right now. Let's talk about Rhonda and Greg. Linda, you want to talk about that one?
Okay. We have Rhonda and Greg, early 50s, second marriage. Menopause symptoms and ED meds collide. They consulted a Black sexologist, learned about lubricants, mindful breathing, and outer course. Their intimacy now feels playful, not pressured.
Any comments about this one before we weigh in on this one? Anybody know about the menopause symptoms and ED meds?
Well, that's life. I mean, they're in their early 50s. Life is taking a hold of them and taking them on this, I hate to call it, say downward spiral, but like you said earlier, the same person they was when they were in their 20s and early 20s and 30s, that's not them in their early 50s. Your life has changed significantly. I have this saying, I tell my friends, because every time I have a birthday, it's like something new starts to act up. Something changes in my allergies, or I get another pain or ache somewhere new. When my girlfriends or my friends start having issues, they say, something just that. I said, girl, your birthday right around the corner. Didn't I already tell you every time you have a birthday, something new pops up? And I believe that's true. Because as you age, your body, it slowly, I hate to say it, it breaks down. When you used to could sprint the mile at school when you was in high school, you can barely walk it today. People can barely walk in the mall. But when you incorporate those, women going through menopause, and then the erectile dysfunction, issues with the men, once you add those medications and stuff like that, it plays a huge part in your relationship, and especially in your intimacy between each other. Both of you guys have to be extremely understanding and be very empathetic to one another, because you have to work with each other. I mean, you have to find ways and workarounds, both of the issues, because the medication is just treating your symptoms, but there are also side effects from those medications.
Okay, I think
But
we're
I
losing.
think in this example, it stated that, for real, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay. In this example, they saw professional help, sexologists, and they learned about lubricants to help with the menopause, and then mindful breathing and outer course. I've never heard of that, but the example doesn't go into much details in regards to the ED meds. So I can't speak from a male's perspective to say how that works if a man isn't able to get a full erection. But I know that if he's not, having sex is going to be a little slow starting.
Okay. Let's clear the outer sex, the outer course. Outer course, anything that you're not doing outside the body. It could be massage, could be touch, could be tongue. It could be anything other than the penetration that you would normally do with
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Anybody want to talk about this one before I weigh in? Because this right here begins to tell a story about us at our age. Any comments? Anybody want to unmute and talk about this one? Or you want to put it in the chat? You got something? Must be something interesting in the chat. I see your eyes moving, Glenda.
Okay, I'm reading something from one of the participants'
Okay.
experience.
While she's reading that, I weigh in a little bit on this one. This one is unique. I don't think most ladies have a problem telling they're on menopause, because a lot of them say they have their personal summers and they're sweating, and they share that. That's something that women share. For some reason, that's not a taboo. I think it's normal. But men, very few men want to tell somebody they have ED. Very few men want to let them know that things ain't like they used to be. A man ain't gonna come out and say, "Hey, look, I got problems," but that desire is still there. Matter of fact, I'm living in the Atlanta area now, and in the Atlanta area now, every other commercial is about Viagra, Cialis, going to male clinics and stuff like that. That's how popular this is, because sex is something people want. Intimacy, that's a part of life. And that's a part of life that a lot of people will not let go. And even if you don't have the ability to be a part of it, you still won't let it go. So how do you handle that? I'm a guy. I think Mr. Kingdom, you on there. Mr. Kingdom, you want to help us out on this one? Because I'll tell my thoughts on it. Most guys don't want to let people know that they got issues in that department.
Yeah, I'm on and I'm listening, but I was gonna wait and then get my opinion on everything.
Well, go ahead and get it now. There's no time like the best times right now.
Right now,
Yeah, they said the
well,
best time. They said the best time to plant an apple tree is 10 years ago. They said next best time is right now. So go ahead.
yeah, right. Well, first of all, from a man's perspective, let's just say you do have ED problems. There's more ways of intimacy than just intercourse where you got to get an erection. There's more ways of it, meaning there's plenty of ways to satisfy a female. There's plenty of ways for you to be satisfied other than that. And for the ones that don't understand that, it starts off with what they call foreplay.
Mm.
You understand? So that's
I'm
how I
with you.
feel about it.
Okay. 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 That's the snippet you give us now. Do you come back again later in the conversation? I guess
Yeah.
what you're saying. Okay.
That just gives somebody something to think about and start off with. And then I complete it by explaining it.
I was in a room with a lot of ladies, and I heard these two ladies talking. And true story, by the way. I heard these two ladies talking, and this one lady she had about 5 or 6 ladies listening to her. And she said, "Let me tell you," she said, "You need to get you a young man." Said, "Don't, the men's 50, 60, 70 years old, said the stuff won't get hard. And half the time, you're not getting anything out of them. Says that you're going to either get the money, because you ain't getting no honey." So, and I heard that conversation, and I didn't say anything. Because I heard it. I wasn't in the conversation, but I was close enough I could hear it. And the way majority of women said that the majority of men in their 50s, 60s, and 70s have ED problems, have issues. And then I started looking at my little stuff. I said, "Whoa, wait a minute." Oh. So I said, "Wow." So it made me think, and it made me realize how important that is still at 50, 60, 70 years old, how important that is to men and women.
Can I make a comment?
Please do.
Yes.
Uh, so is it always the case? And then it's just me asking a question.
Mm-hmm.
So is is an erection ED for a man always you think that it's always because of medication, or could it be a possibility that the man is no longer attracted to his female spouse or what have you?
Well, I answer that.
Go ahead, and I'll come after you.
It's a variety. It's a number of things that goes on. Okay, it could be he's not attracted to you. It could be medication. It could be a disease for as a nerve damage or whatever, because your nerves consist of majority of it anyway, which I had to find out through an accident. Okay, so it could be a number of things. It's not one specific thing that you can blame it on. Okay, I hope I answered your question.
Yeah. I just wanted to just kind of inquire about that because I know a situation that is not necessarily due to medication, is due to lack of attraction. So that's why I brought that up.
Well, the reason I broke it down the way that I did, I'm gonna give you my experience. I was involved in a fatal train accident where I had severe nerve damage, which cut off nerves in my brain. Okay, for a while there, when it came to like the sexual part, there was nothing there. I mean, excuse my French, my shit disappeared. There was nothing there. Matter of fact, I used to tease the nurse. The nurse come to clean me up, and she said, "Do you mind?" I'm like, "Why? Ain't nothing there for you to see, no way." But I found out then that your nerves has a big significant part in that part of your life as far as a male. You know, I thank God since my surgery is different now, but for that moment, that's what happens when it comes with nerve. Like you got people with neuropathy, that cause it. Some drugs that you do take will cause it. You understand? And naturally, physical attraction has a lot to do with it.
Sure.
So it consists of a lot of things. But what people fail to realize that the physical intimacy part is not solely what you need when it comes to companionship and affection. Because from my past experience, even at a younger age, there's been times where that foreplay part will take a female to that maximum, to the point where a time a man she's ready to quit anyway. She's like Bernie Mac. I got mine, you get yours, type of deal. You understand? To the point where it don't always fall on what a man does for as the intimacy part, for as the intercourse. Because he can do everything before he even start the intercourse.
I want to add to Felicia's question. Felicia, sometimes it's complacency in relationships. It's and a lot of times if you're doing the same thing, or if you let yourself go, or if you're not taking each other serious, you're not loving each other. Complacency sometimes will get that, because you got to realize it's arousal. If 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 you never if you never make an attempt to make me feel special, I never make you feel special. And it's the same thing. Yep, hey, like Celie on Color Purple. Mister did his business. She look at the seal and Mister down there doing his business. Those type of situations, yes, those type of situations would make it difficult to make that act go any further. I remember looking at an Eddie Murphy movie, and this one movie where he had to make love to this old lady in order to keep his job. And he had to do all kind of stuff to get prepared for the situation. So there's a lot to that answer. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we're almost at the end and we still have a lot to go through. So Glenda, you have to make a decision. Are we going to turn this into a part 2 and do it? Because we haven't touched really touched the part, but we're going to reel it in.
You can let the audience choose. This
Well,
is
I give you my honest opinion. I think it needs to go to a part two because you got a lot of stuff that interferes with that. Because if I'm stressed about something, I don't want to be bothered about that. You understand? Females have a tendency to per se get on a man's nerve. Once you get on my nerve, hey, I ain't finna do that, just like y'all do when y'all don't want to do it. You understand? And then there's a lot of issues that goes in, what they call you get monotonous doing the same repeated thing all the time.
Complacency.
If you want to
Complacency.
do that same position, man, hey, switch it up. You don't want to eat steak every night because you'll get tired of steak. You don't want to eat pork chop every night. You get tired of it. So you got to do something to keep it exciting, interesting, and keep it there. You can't just do the same routine. It'll get old.
And
And you just got to find ways within yourself which will come naturally if you have that communication with your significant other. You do what you have to do. So I feel that we need to continue this conversation next week myself.
yeah, because Gigi put an interesting thing up there. Do you think this could be that he is superficial? And that's a biggie because, and that's something that's very important because a lot of times people get into relationships for the wrong reason. People get in, think they want to have the sex and think, hey, I can tear this up or I can break this, whatever. And after when they realize they didn't did what they had to do, accomplished it, then they start losing interest. And then it's what's left. So there's a lot left, Glenda. So we're doing part two, apparently, correct?
yes, sir.
Okay, then let's let Glenda bring it home and close us out for the night. And guys, we'll be back next week. I have a couple personal things I want to share about this subject because we're going to talk about Amanda and James and some of the and matter of fact, that's a very real situation that I know a lot about. So we're going to talk about that and some more things next week, and we're going to concentrate mostly on that 40 to 70 years old. We're going to talk about sex education and the what realistic happened in that time, in that age and time bracket, and how do you still make it enjoyable? How do you still make it last? All right.
And I got opinions on that, which Rufus, you know me and where I go, and I want to touch bases on that as far as females and males.
See you next
Okay.
week. Bring it next week. All right, Glenda, close it out.
All right. All right. Intimacy is a lifelong conversation. So as we land this conversation tonight, I want to remind you, intimacy isn't a chapter, it's a lifelong book. And too many of us were only handed the cover or worse. One second, my internet. Okay, or worse, a redacted version missing the joy, the self-trust, the playfulness, and the tools to speak up for what we truly want. But here's the truth. We have permission to relearn, to ask questions, to receive pleasure, to name your needs without apology. You have permission to shift, to say, what worked for me at 25 doesn't work now, and that's okay. Tonight, we've remembered that sex education isn't about shame or secrecy. It's about power, healing, and connection. It's about wholeness. And every time you choose to grow, explore, and even restart the conversation with your partner or yourself, you're rewriting what intimacy can look like for generations to come. Thank you so much for joining us tonight at Reset to Healthier Relationships, Sunday night at 9. If you haven't already, please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And I will see you guys next Sunday at 9. Good
Thank
night.
you, everybody, for
Goodbye.
being so open and honest. I really appreciate you. Good night, everybody.
Right.